All right, we are here today to go through our Fall State Games officials training for flag football. My name is Alex. I'm the Senior Manager of Volunteers here with Special Olympics Washington. A little later, I'll go through more contact information, but my email there is awriter@soa.org. So jumping right into it, we want to go through the fundamentals of being an official with flag football. So first of all, the location. So this year's state games, we're going to have flag football at Badger Mountain Community Park. That's going to be in Richland. There is, of course, parking on site, but be sure to try to save the spots that are closer to the field for athletes and families. A few things logistically. Check-in time, if we could check in somewhere between 7:30 and 8, that would be great. We will be there and all set up. Just look for the volunteer check-in table, and we'll get you all plugged in there. After you check in, we're going to hold a brief training right around 8 a.m. We'll let you guys know exactly where that training area is going to be. We do have a changing area for you guys, so that's going to be Broadmoor RV has been very generous to provide some RVs for us. So we're going to have some areas in some of those RVs where you can change and store your stuff. And then once you check in, that's kind of just a time for you guys to ask any additional questions, clarify rules, anything like that. Lunches will be provided for you guys. Brackets are going to be released next week. So with that, once those brackets come out, we do have some full days of competition, but I'm going to be able to go through and we're going to separate out what officials are on what field. So you guys are going to come into the day with a little bit of a rotation. We'll be able to let you know when your breaks are going to be, those kind of things. So touching on that piece, in terms of rotation, our goal is to have 3 officials on each field. If possible, we do still need more officials. So if you know anybody who is up for that, we would love to have them. But, you know, we can make it work with anywhere from 1 if you're a rock star to 2. So again, in most cases, we would like 2 to 3 officials per field. 1 back judge, 1 side judge, and then 1 official kind of running the show. And then we'll rotate you guys throughout the day, different fields. Make sure you get a little bit of experience of everything. So kind of going into the basics of Special Olympics flag football, for those of you who have not refereed flag football or Special Olympics in general, this is a kind of a way to give you a brief overview of the differences. So there is a youth-sized football that we use. Big thing is that all players must have a protective mouthpiece. Participants must have a playing uniform, matching shirt, shorts, pants, with numbers on the front and back. So as you see in this example right here, that actually wouldn't work because there's not numbers on the front and back. No blue jeans, jewelry, pockets. So we will have some tape on site. So athletes, if they do have pockets, will just have to tape those over. There's no metal cleats, spikes, or hiking boots. So in terms of the touchdown, scoring wise, so a touchdown is 6 points, just as any other football game. The difference here is at an extra point. If you go from the 5-yard line, it's 1 point, and from the 12-yard line, it's 2 points. Now, we'll talk about the no-run zones here in a second, but if you go from the 5-yard line in, it must be a pass. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But safeties were 2 points. The mercy rule, that's if a team is up 25 or more points in the last minute of the game, the clock keeps running. The field of play, so don't worry, this is all going to be lined out and measured for you guys by the time you get there. But the field of play is 60 yards in length by 25 yards in width. Possessions are always going to start at the 5-yard line. And teams have 4 plays to cross midfield and then 4 more plays to score a touchdown. You're going to face 2 no-run zones in each drive. So I started the 5. I have 10 yards there where I can go, and then all of a sudden I'm entering the no-run zone towards midfield. Sorry, I have a few more yards to go than that before. Then I reach the no-run zone, so it's the 5 yards leading up to the midfield where I cannot run any running plays to get a first down. And then once again, as I'm going into the goal line, so there would be that last 5 yards, I cannot run any running plays in there. That must be a pass. So like I mentioned, that's the same thing if you're going for 1 on the point after touchdown. Timing, the way we run it, our 20-minute running clock halves, we will have a scorer for you at the scoring table. So we're going to have a scorer and timekeeper helping out with those kind of things. But it doesn't hurt if you do have your own watch to go ahead and bring that with you. The clock will stop on timeouts. Each team, you're going to receive one per half, and it does not carry over to the second half, so use it or lose it in the first. And there's a 5-minute halftime break. All right, so penalties. So all penalties, they're assessed from the line of scrimmage. No penalty. We can't go any more than half the distance to the offender's goal line. So some of your offensive penalties and what that is, that's 10 yards and a loss of down. So illegal motion, offsides, any illegal forward or backwards pass. Illegal procedure, so we can talk about this a little more in a second, but a legal procedure could be something like if we're playing unified sports and a partner athlete throws to another partner athlete, that would be an illegal procedure. Pass interference, illegal contact, that would relatively be the blocking penalty, no flag guarding, and then delay of game. Defensive penalties, so that's 10 yards from the line of scrimmage, and an automatic first down. That would be offsides, pass interference, illegal contact. So think about that as being a little bit too rough for the most part. Illegal flag pull. And so that would kind of be pulling the flag as someone who's away from the play, not into it. You can't just pull their flag. And then illegal rushing. So we're going to talk about what it means to rush here in a second. So we'll talk about that. Live ball versus dead ball. The only thing here to note is that the ball must be snapped between the center's legs to start a play. It can be a shotgun snap. It can be a under center snap. Doesn't matter. There are no minimum number of players that must line up on the line. A ball is dead on any fumble. So a defense can't recover a fumble. The ball is dead right there. Other situations where the ball is dead, a flag is pulled, an athlete loses their flag and just falls off. Of course, you step out of bounds, knee or hand touches the ground. Point scored, defense obtains the ball, incomplete pass, interception. And if a snap touches the ground, so if that exchange is not clean, that is a dead ball. So unified sports rules. So some of you guys are going to be umpiring unified sports. What that is, that's just athletes with and without intellectual disabilities on the same team. So there'd be a proportionate number. The lineup shall never exceed 2 partner athletes at a time. And kind of like I talked about, so partners as quarterbacks, I cannot throw to another partner at that stage. But on the flip side, a partner I can hand off to another partner. So just a few things to keep in note there. So a few things formation-wise. Really just the big thing is that every player must be on its side of the line of scrimmage when the ball is snapped. Like I said, there's no minimum or maximum number of players that must be on the line of scrimmage. No ineligible receivers, those kind of things. Motion, only one player of the offensive team can be in motion. Of course, they must stay behind the line of scrimmage, and then they must get set for 1 second. So a few other things to note. There's 5 players on a field at a time. There's going to be a maximum on 12 of a roster. That shouldn't be something you have to worry about, but just keep a note of 5 players on a field at a time. Of course, Special Olympics flag football is non-contact, so we want to make sure that that's enforced. And one thing to note, in overtime, we might have a few of these. So each team, they're going to receive 2 plays from midfield. And the way that works is that the team gaining the most points or yardage is awarded 1 extra point. So let's say one team scored 2 touchdowns on their 2 plays. One team scored 1 touchdown. Well, the team who scored 2 touchdowns would be given that 1.1. The way that we've seen it advance to a second and third overtime, of course, is, let's say we throw an incomplete, both teams throw an incomplete pass on their first play, both teams complete a touchdown on the next play. Then that would both get a point and move on to the next overtime. So a few things, the basis of rushing in flag football with Special Olympics, only direct handoffs behind the line or line of scrimmage are permitted. You can do multiple handoffs. If you want to do a center sneak, I've seen that happen a few times, but it must completely leave the center's hands first. The quarterback cannot advance the ball, so there's no scrambling around and then advancing the ball that way. No laterals or pitches are allowed. The player who received the handoff can throw the ball behind the line. No spinning, hurdling, jumping, shielding, stiff arming, anything like that to put the safety at risk. That would be a penalty. So screen blocking. So this is the act of legally obstructing an opponent without him or her, without using any part of the screen blocker's body. Essentially, think of this as a basketball screen where you kind of just move yourself to get in the way of a defender. This is the only form of blocking that is allowed. The screen blocker must have their arms extended to the ground in front of them or behind their back. Any use of arms, elbows, shoulders to initiate contact, that would be a screen block, and that's an illegal form of blocking. A player must stay on their feet before, during, and after. And like I said, screen blocking is the only legal form of blocking that can be used by a player at any time. So again, think of it as that basketball style screen where you just have to, you can get in the way a little bit, but there's no contact that's initiated. So passing and receiving basics. So shovel passes are allowed. They must be received beyond the line of scrimmage, however. All players can receive a forward pass, so the center can immediately go out and receive a pass. A player does need to have 1 foot in bounds for a catch. So college, high school rules. Players can dive to make a catch, but not for any other reasons. If a player steps out of bounds, they cannot be the first player to touch the ball upon re-entry. Defensive basics. So what I talked about with that rushing the passer penalty. So all players who rush the passer must be a minimum of 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And they will indicate to you that they're going to be the rushers. So you as an official, you'll be given a bean bag, and you're going to toss that right out at 7 yards. So that's where they know where to rush from. Any player who is not rushing the quarterback, they can be right up on the line of scrimmage. There's nothing wrong with that. And then the second the quarterback hands the ball off, that's 7-yard zone. It does not exist, so anybody can go for the ball. Flag pulling, a legal flag pull takes place when the ball carrier is in full possession of the ball, so not mid-throw and go pull somebody's flag. It is illegal to pull or strip the ball. If a belt does fall off, the player is down. And like I mentioned earlier, a defensive player may not intentionally pull flags when a player is not directly involved with the play. And of course, no flag guarding or shielding is allowed. Just real quickly, a volunteer code of conduct here, that while serving as a volunteer, you're going to provide for the general health, welfare, and safety of all Special Olympics athletes and volunteers. Dress and act in an appropriate manner at all time. Actually, that's a great point on this instance. If you guys do have officials' uniforms that you wear, feel free to go ahead and bring those with you. We'll make sure you guys also get a Special Olympics Washington volunteer shirt. But for those of you who don't have that, we're going to have some officials' pennies for you as well. So don't worry about that if you don't have one. We're also going to have some whistles and stopwatches on site. So don't worry about all that stuff. And then back to the code of conduct. So following the established rules and guidelines of Special Olympics, report any emergency to the appropriate authorities. There's going to be walkie-talkies out in each of your fields to help with that. Abstain from the consumption or use of alcohol, tobacco, and illegal substances. And of course, not engage in any inappropriate contact or relationship with athletes, volunteers, or other participants. We just want to thank you guys for volunteering. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, we still could use a few more officials. If you're looking to sign up, you can head over to 2019 fallgames.my-trs.com and have them register on site. You can also email me at awriter@sowa.org to get signed up. For some of you guys, you might be looking for confirmation of volunteer hours. You can email that to me. And of course, if you're in need of any assistance as we approach the games, feel free to email me. And that is my cell phone number, so 425-281-1769. Feel free to get in contact with me. Again, like I keep mentioning, we are still looking for more officials. So if you know somebody who would be interested in, go ahead and feel free to send them my direction, and I'm happy to get them set up. Thank you guys so much for volunteering with us. We're looking forward to next weekend.